government's complete inability to like take care of economic situations, and just they're manipulating, they're lying. America is just printing money. So you're going to trust that more than this open source, transparent technology?
As an inflation hedge, I think that it makes sense to have Bitcoin in the basket, at least.
The US dollar has lost 98.5% of its gold value.
This is a scam. Money's a scam.
Thing that you've been talking a lot about is just Bitcoin.
Yep.
Arguably, not arguably, the most...
Talking about Bitcoin?
Yeah, talking about Bitcoin. The most interesting, exciting, valuable aspect of blockchain currently, undoubtable, right? Is that a controversial take?
I think it's like most people know Bitcoin. They know the brand. A lot more people are maybe agreeing that it could possibly have value long term.
Yep.
You know, where before I think it was a lot of still skeptics. I think there's still a lot of skeptics, but I think it's like past a certain point where it's like, oh, actually, maybe it will stick around. It's been 15 years, you know. But most valuable, I don't know, smart contracts got to be up there. But definitely the world is watching Bitcoin a little bit more closely now. You know, we got political leaders talking about it. There's talks about it being added to as a Federal Reserve, like a Treasury Reserve, you know. Companies, not just MicroStrategy, but companies starting to put it on their balance sheet. So
it's moving.
Yeah, it's moving.
And one super interesting aspect, attribute, whatever you want to call it, of Bitcoin is the set supply, right? So that's a core function. That's a reason why people see so much value in it.
How many are there?
How many? Well, how many Bitcoin are there?
Well, there will only ever be 21 million.
But
yeah,
big but, cannot lie.
Well, there's just I think 19 million issued now. So it kind of like issues over time. And the last Bitcoin will be mined in like 116 years, but it'll take 40 years for the last one to be mined. So it kind of like gets more scarce into the system over time. However, there's a shit ton that are lost, locked. People send them to wrong addresses. All sorts of things happen.
Yeah, and so it's nearly 25%. They would define it. I think so based on some reading I've done, there's like 3 states of the liquidity. It's liquid, highly liquid, and illiquid. And people have kind of bucketed out the Bitcoin supply currently into those categories.
And what are those numbers? I don't know those.
I know that 78% of Bitcoin circulating supply is classified as illiquid. Yeah. 78% is illiquid. That's pretty incredible.
I know. And it's good. It's a double-edged sword again. It's like good because price action means it's only moving on the really liquid stuff, you know? That means we can have very volatile like kind of movements up and down because not everything is like in transit or in transition, you know?
And you also see that it's not always 78%. Usually following market cycles, some Bitcoin goes from illiquid to liquid or from liquid to highly liquid as people move their assets around and prepare to transact.
Yeah. I'm guessing that when they break that down, the highly liquid would be on exchanges, I'm guessing.
Yes.
And the illiquid maybe is lost or in cold storage, I guess. I'm not exactly sure how they break that down.
Yeah, I have a bunch of notes here. We could talk about some of that. Just to add on what you just said. So the remaining 22% obviously is divided between highly liquid and liquid. And so 3 million Bitcoin are considered highly liquid. So it's held by entities with frequent trading activity.
Okay, so it's even less than just on exchanges. Because a lot of people have it on exchange in their Coinbase wallet, but they're not actually trading it. They're just holding it on that centralized exchange. Yeah. Well, I was looking into this, as you know. I'm pretty interested by the idea of governments and companies holding Bitcoin in a treasury or on their balance sheet. When MicroStrategy started doing it, like end of 2020, it was bold and I thought a little crazy because the asset's so volatile. And I was just thinking, why would you put that on your balance sheet? You know, and it's taken a long time and a lot more people, a lot more companies and countries jumping in before I've kind of realized how powerful it is. I mean, for price action one, it's powerful because the illiquid supply essentially gets smaller and smaller, larger and larger, and the liquid supply gets smaller and smaller, especially with MicroStrategy. They're not selling, they're only buying. But you've got MicroStrategy, then Tesla did. Tesla sold for a bit, then it bought back, it accepted. And holding it on the balance sheet is different from accepting it as payment. You know, there's a bunch of reasons why it's different. And especially in the US when they use GAAP accounting. So I looked into that. But Tesla would accept Doge or Bitcoin for their cars and accessories and things like that, but then they'd also hold it on their balance sheet.
So they're currently already accepting Bitcoin and Doge. Yeah. So I can go buy mine.
I think they like turn it off and on sometimes, but it's on at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. I looked in. I checked. I didn't buy anything, but I checked. Yeah. And so with this list of companies and with this list of countries. So we've got 21 million Bitcoin that they'll ever be in circulation on a blockchain, right? We're at about 19 million now circulating supply, give or take, yeah? But there's probably maybe a bit higher than 25%. InvestAnswers, James, he calculates, and he does a lot more research than we do, and he calculates 14 to 15 million will be the end kind of circulating supply.
14 to 15
14 to 15 million. The rest lost, locked, whatever. And there's also a research company that came out and said that approximately 4% per year are going missing just from numpties sending it in the wrong place.
Yeah, it's just going to continue, right? That's never going to, or maybe it ends eventually.
I think it will reduce the percentage. 4% seems like, but 4% of what's out there, you know? And then James cut it down to 1% per year, which it seems a little bit more reasonable. But ETFs now have 7% just in the ETFs already. Yeah. BlackRock with 5%. Countries, 4%, with the US has some, Japan has some.
So just across all states.
Yeah, yep. And in companies, 5%. So public 2 point something and private 3 point something. Then the top 100 addresses have over 20%.
100 addresses own 20% of the Bitcoin.
Yeah, including the Satoshi kind of, you know, and he owns 5%.
Yeah, 100 million Bitcoin or a million. Yeah, because there's not 100 million Bitcoin. A million Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's like, that falls into this category of illiquid, the Satoshi Wallet. There's so many fun conspiracies about that.
Yeah.
Like I was reading something, obviously this is not founded in any fact or truth, but there's...
Perfect for the show.
Yep, right up my alley. Garbage nonsense. Living in a dream world. There's you don't want to see what he just wrote on that paper. We'll put it on the screen, right?
It was a note. It was a note for me.
Yeah. He's sending messages to me to get away from conspiracies.
No, I'm not. Please go deep. Go deep.
Cool. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm in a good mood today.
Good. That gives me some leeway to slowly scrape away at that good mood.
Yeah, good.
So there's a theory, they call it the dead man switch. Have you heard of such a conspiracy, Satoshi's dead man switch?
When he dies, he market sells?
When something happens to him that compromises his identity or his life or anything related to his work, there's a conspiracy that something will activate within that wallet that sends a signal that something has happened. Very vague.
And what happens to the...
I don't know, maybe something transfers or maybe, I don't know, but it's just interesting people, you know, dreaming up these scenarios of what happens with Satoshi's million Bitcoin.
Well, also some people think he's probably dead. He's dead. He's been knocked off, right? And because he is a cryptographic kind of guy or group, very good at protecting pass keys, so the coins are lost.
Lost forever.
Some people say the CIA.
Yep. We talked about that a little bit. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I don't think... Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so.
Mhm.
There's an InvestAnswers one on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Check out. Well, we'll put a link because sharing more resources. InvestAnswers. You've hipped me to that.
He's fantastic. Does a lot of research, completely different from this show.
Yeah, maybe we could get him on the pod.
He wouldn't associate with us.
No?
With the likes of us, no.
I can't talk about
No.
the Dead Man Switch and Andrew Tate.
No, maybe. Yeah, maybe. He's pretty chill.
Yeah.
He's pretty chill.
Cool.
But he's definitely data and numbers focused.
The yin to our yang.
Yeah.
You know,
might be
perfect balance.
Might be a perfect marriage.
Yeah.
So we got liquid, illiquid,
And highly liquid.
highly liquid, right? This is actually a chart from InvestAnswers.
Okay.
And it says cold storage, 54%. Coins on exchanges, 10.5%. Satoshi lockup, 5%. And then lost coins is at 17 plus 6. What's that? We don't do public math. It's 23. And then coins left to be mined, 7%, 7.7. Yeah, so plenty of coins locked up in cold storage. Countries buying some, companies putting it on their balance sheet. I'm just very bullish at the moment.
I don't know how anyone could not be based off of this data, really.
Yeah.
It's, shrinking supply, more and more reasons to get involved, governments, corporations, all this talk in mainstream spaces. It's hard to imagine people still feeling, I understand feeling a little bit scared or not sure or not, it's mysterious still. Like I know people, older generations where it's like, okay, I understand this value prop. It makes sense, but it's digital money. What it's like, it's this wall that makes it hard to jump in still for some people. But other than that, it's hard for me to imagine another reason why someone would not be bullish on this. And then you combine it with just like government's complete inability to take care of economic situations and just they're manipulating, they're lying, America is just printing money. And why are you going to trust? You're going to trust that more than this seemingly, open source, transparent technology?
I think soon as it starts going on these government, if the US put it in their treasury, I think it's just off to the races because it's kind of like Big Daddy's approval that this is actually not going to get rugged. So, I thought the end of this next bull market, I'm still going to sell out and wait for the next bear. And, this is what I'm going to try and do. Right. But I'm just scared that it won't come back. The Bitcoin, the rest of it's going to zero, but Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Related to the treasury, yesterday, August 15th, was the 53-year anniversary of Nixon removing the gold standard.
Okay.
So in 1971, Nixon made this decision. It wasn't just him, but the U.S. government at the time made the decision to eliminate the gold standard. And since then, over the course of decades, it's kind of, the U.S. dollar has lost 98.5% of its gold value since that decision was made. So this decoupling has led to inflation and all of these other economic issues that have plagued the U.S. I guess, the U.S. is still okay right now, maybe, but interesting to have that anniversary. And as we start to look at something else that could provide a new standard.
Look, I don't think it's going to go into the reserve and then people are going to start denominating in Bitcoin or anything like this, However, as an inflation hedge, I know people saying it's not an inflation hedge, but as an inflation hedge, I think that it makes sense to have Bitcoin in the basket, at least. The gold standard, I wasn't around. I don't really know. I remember watching a show Zeitgeist when I was 20 something.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it kind of explained the fractional banking system. And from then on, I was like, this is a scam. Money's a scam, But it just, the debt calculator, you can go to US debt calculator.com or whatever, that was alive in 2003, or maybe before that. But I remember seeing that like when I was much younger, and I was thinking, how is this ever going to reverse? It just keeps going up, and now it's crazy. So is something going to shake it up? Is it some reset needs to happen? Is it a war, or is it some type of new monetary policy, or does it last another 20, 40, 50, 60? Does it just keep on going? And who knows?
Yeah, there was, maybe it was Venezuela. We'll put in the real country right here. But I saw a video, maybe you saw it recently, of a bunch of government just currency in a dumpster. Just the value of zero. It's zero now. And I mean, it's hard to imagine America the country is already on that trajectory. Something could happen to avoid that and prolong it, sure. Especially, I mean, if we're being honest here, it's war that upholds the value of the US dollar. War is the reason that the dollar is still valuable.
The risk of war.
The risk of war, but just America's presence across the world, the intimidation tactics. There's
like keep using it, or there could be war. You mean?
Yeah. And I mean, we can go into all these stories about like Gaddafi and the reason they offed him being related to trying to get the global currency, because every country is using the US dollar to buy and sell oil.
Not every country.
Not every country. Well, now there's BRICS.
Yeah.
And BRICS is trying to combat that. 15, 20 years ago, BRICS would not have
worked.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been possible, I feel like. And America's just losing their grasp of the power. And, we're just seeing that unfold slowly.
But Trump will bring that back.
Yeah, right? Trump will dominate the world and our hearts and minds.
Actually, we released a podcast today and we were talking, and Biden was still... and it was like first up in the, and I was like, oh my God, we got to release these things faster because Biden was still in the race at that point.
Yep. Now
and I'd never even heard of Kamala Harris. No, but pretty much.
Yep.
And now it feels like the mainstream media is dethroning him already.
Yeah, they all hate him,
No, I mean dethroning the new future of Trump. It feels like he's been kicked off.
Yeah, well, they're all waiting for an excuse to do that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why he rose to prominence so quickly. You have a media establishment and a government elite class that is unified in their hatred towards this one man. Meanwhile, a majority of the population, both Republican and Democrat and independent and everywhere in between, has zero trust in this media and government. So if this media and government's saying, this guy is a problem for our society, we don't want him, it makes him more appealing. Because they're like, fuck you, I don't like the media. The media forced me to get my jab. The media forced me to, think a certain way and feeds me all these lies. It's demonstrated now how much manipulation there is. Of course, them making him the villain from their perspective makes him the hero from the people's perspective, despite any real tangible like political platform or policies that he believes in or doesn't believe in. It doesn't matter. They just see this person who represents the antithesis to the media optics wise. Whether he actually represents that or not is a whole other conversation. But so now
you noticed that?
Have
you noticed there being like a change? Because before, when it was Biden, it was like there was kind of like equal news, but it was both like, look at these two fools, right?
Yeah,
And now it's like, where's Trump? Like it's all about
Kamala.
Yeah. Is that real, or is that just in my head?
It's real, and I think it's manipulated. I mean, there was like a week or two following her announcement or following Biden's announcement to drop out and Kamala's replacement that if you search for Donald Trump on Google, Kamala Harris stories were all that ended pretty quickly, but
Google got called out pretty hard.
Yeah. So I think the Democratic Party establishment and the media establishment that sides with the Democrats have been living in this. I've used this example before, the sunken place. There's a movie called Get Out. It's an awesome movie by Jordan Peele.
Is Fox in that?
Fox?
Fox?
Jamie Foxx is not in that.
okay.
I forget the actors and actresses' names, but it's essentially about like, you know, like black culture and the mental state that people within black culture in America are forced within. Anyway, it's like the sunken place is like this place of not, it's like being brainwashed and not being able to operate, and you're just stuck. And I think everyone was just stuck in this place of like, this old man Biden, he's not inspiring, but he's the option. And as soon as he dropped out, it's just everyone woke up and they're like, oh shit, there can actually be other options. And now because of that, Kamala's getting all this extra love and attention because it's like, oh, there's actually someone else who's not incredibly old white man or whatever, you know. It's she's a little bit old black woman or Indian or some mix between the two.
Yeah.
But definitely
What is she? She's Indian?
I think so. There's like, I mean, man, everything's so manipulated, and some of these things I don't go deep on, but there are people who are like, oh, she's not really black or she's not really Indian. It's just the like identity politics, focus on identity, and then we never have to focus about the economy and healthcare and all the war.
Any plans she has for the country.
Yeah, no, it's just like, this person's black and Indian and a woman. Look at that. Let's all talk about that. And this person's an old white man. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everyone is struggling with high bills and, you know, not having access to things that should be maybe a basic human right, like healthcare. But it's a lot easier to just point and get distracted by the media. They're master manipulators.
And how do you feel about, as being an American, but like living here, how do you feel about what's happening back there? Do you still feel like attached to it, or do you believe like, no?
I'm now, because of the election, I'm a bit more tapped in. But the previous 4 years, I did not pay attention to anything. If a headline came across my screen and I saw it, and maybe like, you know, I'd read a couple articles here and there. For me, it's been so freeing, because I was stuck in this like highly politicized culture and mindset living in America. And I get very deep on that shit, like, or I did before, where I just like, I feel like we're just being fucked, we're being lied to, like nobody is really looking at the real issues. And I, you know, stressed over that night and day, you know. And then I came here, and I came to Thailand here, completely just opened my mind in terms of seeing outside of the American bubble.
Yeah.
And realizing that a lot of my beliefs I still hold, but I don't have to ruin my mental state all the time caring about those things. And people would argue with me like, oh, you're detaching, so you're not helping the problem, or you're not helping find a solution, you're making the problem worse. But fuck them all, baby.
Just if a few of us detach, it's okay.
Yeah. We can detach.
Yeah.
We're providing value through this podcast now, so
exactly.
you know.
That's our contribution. No, I've just been completely checked out of Australian politics, well, forever probably. But I follow the US a bit because it's attached to crypto. So I'm interested in crypto. So then it's like, yeah, that's the effect. But that's it.
You mentioned that in the previous podcast, and I just found that interesting because my stupid assumption is like, everyone, if they're paying attention to politics, they're paying attention to their country's politics. But that's not the case, apparently.
No. There's been a lot come and go. Prime Minister, I have no idea who they are.
Yeah. Why are you going to watch some C-level direct to VHS, old school term, but like movie, when you can go to the movie theater and watch the highest produced dramatic theater in the world, right?
Are you comparing Australia to US politics?
Yeah, just like any country, you know, America, and maybe that's a stupid biased thing to say, or like a closed-minded thing to say, because I'm sure there's dramatic shit everywhere, but America is really just takes the cake.
You definitely got the dial turned up, for sure. We got a new Prime Minister here in Thailand. Let's not talk about it. But we just got a new Prime Minister today. Yep. So that's interesting. Yeah. But not interesting for this podcast. No. We were talking about Bitcoin at some point.
Yes.
And the one thing I didn't bring up, we talked about lost coins. We talk about them being lost either on exchanges, locked out, or lost Mt. Gox. You said you had some info about Mt. Gox, or sent to the wrong address, or people have them on a hard cold storage or hard wallet, and then they've lost that.
Or they've been like locked out of it by using the wrong password.
Wrong password. I found some people who recover the passwords. I put it in the Discord. Very interesting, like father and son team. I'd love to talk to them at some point because they've got like a strategy. If you fill out the questionnaire and you have the data that they ask for, it must have to do with like social engineering passwords and stuff. But if you fill it out, they have a 30 something % success rate recovering Bitcoin.
And they're taking some cut of that?
20%.
20%.
20%. And so I was watching that, thought that was interesting. Then I found the guy who threw his hard disk away when he threw his computer away. And then he's like, oh my God, I got, what was there? There was some huge amount.
7,500.
Yeah, 7,500 Bitcoin.
James Howells. Shout out to you, James Howells.
You poor bastard.
Yeah.
And he offered the Newport council or whatever to excavate the landfill to look for the Bitcoin. He offered them 25%.
But they said no.
Yeah, it's a big job. And even if they find the hard disk, then he'd have to figure out how he can recover it. Or maybe it's fucked. Maybe it's destroyed.
I would not be surprised that when Bitcoin goes even more moon, they will put in the time to look for that.
There could be people there doing it now.
Probably. Let's go. We should go film a podcast
there. Where is it? Let's go. Let's figure it out. What else I got here? I got one guy had 1 million. Mercy. Did you have this guy? Mercia Peperdoscu?
No.
Drowned off the coast of Costa Rica on a morning swim. Yeah.
Talk about conspiracies.
Yeah.
How much did he have? How much Bitcoin?
1 million.
He had 1 million Bitcoin.
Apparently. Apparently. Yeah. Satoshi had 1,040,000. And who else we got? We got 400K. Tanaka. You got this guy?
No,
Tanaka Toshikana. I can't say this, but hard disk crash. But he actually went on and like bought more again, so he's in a pretty good position. But imagine having 400,000 Bitcoin, and your hard disk fucks up.
My heart just sinks. My gut sinks. Like just reading these stories, and it's like, oh, life lesson.
Yeah. There was a guy, Max Kaiser, who's like an early Bitcoiner, and he used to give people 10,000 Bitcoin.
That's cool.
So he gave like Alex Jones 10,000. Apparently Alex Jones lost it. He gave like a whole bunch of people 10,000.
I remember that Alex Jones story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lost it on his boat or something.
There's like the pizza guy, the first pizza bought from Bitcoin. Everyone talks about that guy. No one talks about the pizza shop. Unless I've just missed that story. Like, let's talk to the pizza owner, the shop owner.
No, it was Papa John's.
Papa John's.
It was Papa John's. And no, but they didn't accept the Bitcoin. So the story is that he's on the Bitcoin Reddit or whatever. I think it was Bitcoin forums, and he's like, they're all mining Bitcoin. They're getting all this thousands of Bitcoin, and they can't do anything with it. So there's all these kind of nerds mining it, and he goes, "Oh, I want some pizza. Can I pay someone 10,000 Bitcoin to get some pizza?" So one other guy goes, "Okay, fine." So he calls Papa John's, he pays on his credit card or whatever. And this guy sends him 10,000 Bitcoin. Doesn't think about it again.
Legend.
Dude, I mean, every year at this time, you see how much? It's like $75 million. What the fuck? For two Papa John's pizzas.
Yeah. The most expensive pizzas in history.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, right? I don't think there will be a question about that.
No, of course. Yeah.
It's cool.
I would say it wouldn't even come close, right? So when you add all that up, it's a lot of Bitcoin loss. So then you've got 14 to 15 million left. And that number will like slowly get lower as we go on and more people fuck up and lose their Bitcoin.
Yep.
So it's made me rethink my end of cycle. Maybe I've got to keep a little bit of Bitcoin.
Yeah. Why take the risk?
Just a bit. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just like, the more I look into it, like a lot of crypto, the more I look into it, the less bullish I am. But
Bitcoin the opposite.
But Bitcoin, and definitely at the moment, is the opposite. So,
I think this leads to another interesting topic based on what you just said of like, because every cycle, maybe not every cycle, the last few cycles, it's been, this year is different. We're doing it, up only. We're not coming back down. And we're at that point again now. We're having this conversation, like, again, not other crypto. Let's just talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Do you really think there's validity in that? Are we at that turning point where it's like, okay, now we're on to the other? Because when you look at the curve of the 14 years, the technical analysis, you see it losing steam. But when you compare, just like,
like if you open CoinMarketCap, you click on Bitcoin and you look at the max chart. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. You see it rounding off, right? So it looks like it's maybe hitting a long cycle top, or it's preparing for the next massive exponential growth that takes it to the next level, which I think is this moment that people talk about of like, not up only, but this year is different. This cycle is different.
Look, I believe so, but I'm not sure, and I'm often wrong. So, do with that what you wish, but I believe so, and I've planned for that, and that's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? I'm mostly in crypto right now. I'm mostly in Bitcoin, ETH, Sol, and then a bunch of shit coins, like a horrible amount, and I'm not going to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm not, I promised my wife I wouldn't do it again. I'm just not going to do it again. And I'm down bad on some, and, I should have learned my lesson years and years ago. But yeah, crypto, ETH, and recently on the last few dips, I've sold ETH and Matic and reduced those sizes and bought more Sol. And mainly that's because of, not financial advice, James from InvestAnswers, and just putting my faith there a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's a valid strategy. I mean, to empathize with you, I'm in a ton of shit coins and NFTs and stuff, and I don't love it, but a few of them I have some conviction in, which I guess means it's not really a shit coin, but a lot of them I'm like...
I sold all my Sandbox recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
At a loss?
I would probably, I'm not sure. I didn't even think, I just thought, you know what? I just consolidated and bought a whole bunch and just bought more Sol.
We should have another podcast about metaverse, because I think
for sure.
Very interesting topic.
And I shared in the Discord about one of the metaverse projects that I was following and how they're branching into hardware. So it'll be cool to check that out.
Yeah, let's do that next time.
So do we go back to Bitcoin, or is there something else you got?
No, I think let's keep going on Bitcoin, because there's some more.
This one here, who's holding? Because I found something. And speaking of who's holding, I'm holding this water from CryptoCoff, our sponsor, who's allowing us to use this fantastic room at the moment.
Yep.
Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about CryptoCoff?
Of course, I'd love to. Nothing I enjoy more than that. Blockchain Technology Center in Phuket.
Yep.
CryptoCoff you see at the front of the building, but really what they have here is a massive facility, really nice infrastructure for meetings like the room we're in now.
Yeah. This is the hard fork room.
The hard fork room, great room, nice and modern and equipped with all of the amenities you would need to run a proper business meeting and feel comfortable here.
Yep.
Then there are, tons of other meeting rooms and conference space and presentation space for almost like a classroom, There's a green screen room.
Yeah.
There is a VR studio for just those who want to game a little bit in between your productive meetings.
Yeah, they've got a whole VR gaming floor up there. So the facility's huge. For being in Phuket, the southern end of Phuket, Rawai, Chalong area, it's like you've stepped into a different world.
Yeah. I
thought when they were building it that it was like for interplanetary ships to arrive. The thing is just stands out like dog's balls. It's shouldn't be here really, right? It's like, wow.
Yeah. It's something you'd expect in Bangkok maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
But great to see it here, and
they're very gracious to let us, and the coffee's pretty good. This piccolo was nice.
Awesome. Yeah. So if you're looking for to rent some space, co-working space, have a meeting, play some VR, grab a coffee, and just work remotely. And then, also crypto events. They have regular events. So check them out. We'll drop the domain, the website in the description below. So thank you, CryptoCoff. Thank you, Blockchain Technology Center.
So I found this thing about who's holding, and it was saying, okay, here's the digits. 11% of Bitcoin hasn't moved between 5 and 7 years.
Has not moved.
Has not moved, right? Now, some of that could be the lost stuff. You know what I mean?
So some of those things fall in that bucket, like the Satoshi.
Yeah, exactly.
So half of that is Satoshi.
Yes. Well, you know what? Maybe it doesn't. I know. Let's say it includes it, right? 17% has moved in the past 3 months, and that's down from 20% at the start of the year. And then since 2021, 45% hasn't moved in the last 3 years.
Can you just define moved?
Like move from one address to another address, one wallet to another wallet.
Does that include moving to an exchange as well, right? It's just
it would include moving from an address like to an exchange address, but it wouldn't include moving on the exchange because once it goes into the exchange hot wallet, it's not there.
Yeah.
So, I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Only 17%, and that falls in line with your highly liquid, right? 3 million. I'd say a bit more than 3 million. Obviously, it's 50. Yeah, but it's a little amount that's like liquid, highly liquid. But then I was thinking, class of 2021, 45% hasn't moved in 3 years. Is that because they bought the top? And I was thinking, once it goes over that,
start to move.
Are they just going to dump? But we will. It doesn't deter me from being bullish.
Can you clarify a little bit? So 45%
hasn't moved in 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, 45% hasn't moved in 3 years. 11% hasn't moved in 5 to 7 years.
Got it.
And you know what? I think this is not including the Satoshi amount. I really, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Another reason to be bullish, or just interesting fact?
Interesting fact. I think another reason to be bullish. Because when I think about Bitcoin, I think about, there's only ever going to be 21 million. That's kind of ingrained deep, right? But really, that's ever, including lost and what we've just talked about there. So, when you actually look at it, and if you believe 14 to 15 million, right? And then you work out these numbers, James, I keep shilling James, but he actually counts where the Bitcoin is. So when Mr. 100, have you heard about Mr. 100?
No.
There's a guy that buys 100 Bitcoin every day. His nickname, Mr. 100.
Every day?
Every day.
For how long?
For a long time now.
So today he bought 100 Bitcoin.
He would have bought 100 Bitcoin today. In the days when the market's down, he's definitely buying. If the market's really hot, he might sell a bit. But he's mainly bought, and he's just DCAing 100 Bitcoin a day.
And is he in this top 100 holders bucket?
Yeah. And no one knows who he is.
So he's he doesn't have
no
a public
one said,
profile.
I'm Mr. 100. No, it's just
so
kind of
people
like
just call
a
him
name.
Mr. 100.
Yeah, he's just been named Mr. 100 because every day, 100 Bitcoin every day is pretty impressive, right?
Can we start the conspiracy that it's Trump?
Ooh, that'd be...
People will love that.
People would love that. Actually, Kamala's... Their marketing team should say it's her.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she's got that.
If she does that, they'll tear her apart. If Trump does it, everyone will, uplift him to God level status.
Yeah. I hate to be so close to the politics where I've actually cared about who wins.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think, I'm not condoning Trump. I don't say I'm pro-Trump, right? But I just think if he wins, it's good for my holdings. So it kind of makes me want him to win.
Yeah.
But it feels a bit controversial to say it because I'm just I've always said don't have an opinion on American politics because why should I?
Because you want your bags to pump now.
Yeah, well, that's why.
Yeah. It's so fascinating. Just these, you're put in this predicament. Because for me, it's I believe that Bitcoin, especially all the other shit coins and stuff, who knows? But Bitcoin is unstoppable. So whether it's in the long term,
Now, for sure.
so whether it's Trump or Kamala or Joe Biden resurrects himself from the dead because he's dead currently and comes back and he serves another 20 years or whatever, no matter who it is, no stopping Bitcoin. It's just a short-term game. It's like, do we want to try to maximize the pumpage this cycle, you know? But no one can stop the trajectory. And that's also, for me, credibility of why it's the CIA behind everything. You know, there's theories about the CIA kind of letting Silk Road continue in order to just kind of see how Bitcoin develops and moves in the early days.
I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, they could let their agents use it and then seize the piggy bank at the end. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it was also just
perfect play.
From my notes here, it was to study Bitcoin's potential for tracking illicit activities. And the CIA is notorious for this shit. Like, we're going down I keep doing this. Charles Manson. You know Charles Manson?
Yeah.
You know, the CIA was in with him from the beginning. This is proven at this point. This is not conspiracy. There's evidence. It's proven.
Are you going to get us a flag on YouTube?
Probably.
Is it going to stop you?
No. No. I'm putting the flag in right now.
Why don't you just tell us how?
The long and short.
In a very...
It's just so there's a book written about this. Again, we'll put the link in the description. I forget the name of it. But dude was asked to write an article for a magazine. Now it must have been 25 years ago, kind of summarizing the Charles Manson story at that time. So around the year 2000. And he started to do some real journalism and digging. And what started as like a 3-month project or a few-month project turned into 20 years of his dedication and research on this topic, because he just started uncovering all this information about the CIA running addiction clinics in San Francisco in the 60s. And at that time, also at this point proven and documented, they were exploring methods for mind control. And LSD was like a big potential avenue for them. So they're exploring how these drugs can be used to control people's mind. And here comes Charles Manson, and he already has these tendencies around like his cult-like behavior. And they pretty much, he was not a member, a patient at this clinic.
Trying to get help, trying to, and recover from his addiction.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was like he just got out of prison. So it was like kind of like court-ordered rehab, something like that. And they started providing him drugs and helping him and documenting the whole process. So the CIA knew everything that was happening there, and they let it happen. So that's the long and short of that story. There's so much fascinating shit. There's actually a great episode of the author of that book on Joe Rogan.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of those episodes where it's like 2.5 hours and you can't stop. Just you're in.
Okay.
It's like,
so
holy shit.
If you're interested in that, we'll put the notes below.
Yeah.
But then let's never speak of it again.
Yeah. No, it's fair. But yeah, the CIA has long history of this type of shit. And it's not until, decades later that the news comes out about it or the evidence comes out. So I wouldn't put it past them. Yeah.
I think it's giving him too much credit, but I could be completely off the wall there, but I just feel like it's so random.
It's so random. The US dollar is clearly collapsing, and anyone who is smart enough to actively think critically about that sees this happening for decades and decades and decades, and they put a strategy together.
And then they know that the nerds are going to play with it, and they know that they're going to buy pizza with it, and they know that it's going to go through these cycles of being worth $0 to, pizza. And all just happens to work out. And then the seized money, they move onto the US balance sheet, and that's enough to start to put inflation back on track. And then they can actually because they have all the Bitcoin, or most of it, and Trump wants all the Bitcoins to be made in the USA, there's enough Bitcoin in the USA now that they can get the debt back on track, pay it all back, and everything's rosy.
I don't even think it's getting the debt back. It's controlling the global currency. Again, the US dollar, they've controlled the global currency, the global currency for so long, and they're losing that grasp. So if they're not trying to find a solution, they're stupid
Yeah. Okay.
or ignorant. I don't know what's worse. If it's ignorant, then I would agree that this is far-fetched. Also, you mentioned pizza. Anything related to pizza is conspiracy.
Yeah.
So,
And they're all over it.
yeah, the fact that somebody bought pizza, there's something.
Yeah, and it was Papa John's too.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
Left the
wasn't
PDF file.
it wasn't like a nice, like local, real pizza place. It was a Papa John's pizza, which I'm assuming, because I've never had it, is kind of like Domino's or Pizza Hut.
Oh, it's the worst.
Yeah. It's like the worst of the worst.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll sponsor us.
Yeah. Papa John's, hit us up. You have a lot of Bitcoin. Oh, no, they don't have Bitcoin. Someone else has the Bitcoin. Never mind.
Yeah. And I don't know what the story of that is.
Mhm.
Maybe that guy just kind of like pissed it all away,
Mhm.
you know, or just traded it for something else.
Yeah. Probably like.
Imagine having 10,000 Bitcoin and buying 2 pizzas and being like, oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, it's better than all the like, heroin and human trafficking that people try to argue was being driven by Bitcoin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Pizza is a better.
Pizza's a bit more friendly.
Pretty good.
So all of this I was looking into
Mhm.
led me to this question. And you have a company here.
Mhm.
Would you consider putting Bitcoin on your company balance sheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've thought about it and done a little bit of research.
Yeah. Okay.
To make that happen.
Well, and so I did too. What did you find out?
I just know it's possible. Like
Yeah.
I can do it.
It is possible.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I was a bit surprised about it.
Mhm.
So Thai companies can hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet.
Mhm.
And accepting Bitcoin as form of payment is a separate thing.
Mhm.
So I looked at both, right? Because I had a friend ask me, he doesn't live here anymore, and he said, he's for years said, I just want to be able to spend crypto easily, right? Because he doesn't want to bring it out of crypto land. He doesn't want to like put it back into the US exchanges, and all his is kind of like, on chain but not assigned to his name type thing. So he wants to spend. And he said, if you started accepting crypto at some of your places, then I'd move back. And I've just thought, that's nothing. I didn't really think much of it. And then it came out that it was illegal to accept it as a form of payment in Thailand, crypto. So I kind of didn't look at it again. But actually, you just can't accept it and put it into your accounting. But you can accept it, convert it, and once it's converted, put the Thai baht on your accounting. If you want to buy it and put it on your balance sheet, you have to buy it from a certified dealer, right? And now we have Binance Thailand, BitCub. There's a couple of exchanges. You can buy it. The company has to buy it, put the company name on the invoicing and everything, and then you can hold it on your balance sheet as an asset.
Do you know how this compares to the laws in other countries at all? Is this because I'm ignorant on that?
I just think it would like from jurisdiction to jurisdiction be different. But if it's like classified as a commodity or an asset, then it should be able to. In the US, it can be held on a balance sheet.
Yeah.
And because of, and I'm not an accountant, this is not financial advice, but because of like your GAAP accounting principles, and this is like a bit of a global standard, GAAP accounting, right? General accounting principles, GAAP. If a public company, and that's why it's quite popular with public companies as well, if you hold it on your balance sheet, and it goes down in value, right, it's a loss that you can book, right, in future cash flows, kind of like booking that loss on a future, you know what I mean? Like booking the loss, yeah. But to the shareholders, you can't, you have to tell them, obviously. But then if it's a win, right, so the price starts going up, you can't call it a win, but you can on your books. So it's kind of like deterred, I don't know the full terms there, but it has deterred some people from wanting to do it because it's a bit tricky. It's like it, and maybe I found this guy who explains it very easily, 10-minute thing. I'll put it in the Discord.
Cool.
If anyone's interested.
Yeah,
because you watch this one guy and he can like explain it very easily. He knows what he's fucking talking about. But now more and more companies are starting to do it because they know like over the long term they won't lose as much value as holding cash, because holding cash reserves is just kind of like diminishing.
Yeah, we've seen that trajectory over a long time. So,
Yeah.
Long and short of it, are you going to do it?
I think I'm going to do it.
Think you're going to do it?
I think that I'm going to do it for at least one place. And I think that I will do a little bit, just a tiny bit to see how it works and make sure it's there. But because I think we're going into like a bit of a bull market, right? Or we're already in it, I think what I might do is just a little bit in DCA, but I'm talking tiny percent just to see how it works first. But then when there's blood in the streets again, and when I'm personally buying again, I will buy with the company as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cody owns a cafe in Phuket.
You're gonna have to blink that out.
I can't say that.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I intentionally didn't say the name just in case.
Yeah.
So now you're positioning yourself as like the ultimate Chad Michael Saylor of cafes. Like you want to be the one where everyone's like, this guy. You're setting the standard for cafe owners across the world.
Well, I was
You'll be at Bitcoin
I wasn't going to do the cafe, but I was just going to do my personal little one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because it's got to show like a profit over a certain amount of years.
I'm feeling excited because I'm a customer.
Yeah.
I was ready to.
Thank you for your patronage.
Yeah, but now that I know I can't spend my daddy token that I'm earning, why should I come?
What are you going to do with all that daddy apart from join? Can you join the university with daddy?
No. Real money for that one.
Yeah.
Fiat.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not accepting crypto at the cafe yet, but I will look into doing that in a legal way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
Yeah, I'm interested to get updates on that process, and I think maybe the listeners.
Which side, the holding on the balance sheet or the crypto payment?
The holding on the balance sheet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I guess speaking about crypto payments, nice little smooth transition.
Yeah.
Not our usual. MasterCard.
Pointed out.
Yeah. Just make it not smooth. That's like I'm here to fuck shit up.
We both doing it.
MetaMask has partnered with MasterCard.
Yeah.
For a crypto debit card that essentially allows you to still hold your I think it's just Ethereum, USDC, and USDT that's spendable on this card. Mm-hmm. So you can still self-custody and pay with a card when you go to places that potentially, I mean, I guess it's a debit card. So theoretically, you should be able to use a debit card anywhere that MasterCard is accepted. Yeah,
normally it's charged as a credit card. So there'll be a limit, right? And that limit will be determined by how much crypto. I mean, I don't know how this one's going to work. This is how the other ones work. There's plenty of them. Mm-hmm. But, depending on how much you have in your wallet, that's how much credit they'll give you. And then as soon as it gets charged, they make a transaction and they win from the processing, mm-hmm. Like a normal credit card.
Do you think that's where this is heading? Is this like going to become a kind of mainstream use?
Crypto credit cards or crypto cards, or I don't know if they're debit cards or credit cards. Really.
I think it's a debit.
It would be probably
a debit card. Yeah.
They've been around for a while. Mm-hmm. Have you? You don't have?
No,
you don't have.
You have one?
Yeah. So I have a crypto.com one, mm-hmm. which I had to order from Australia. So I had to pretend I was still in Australia, mm-hmm. have an Australian address, even an Australian SIM card. I had to get someone to bring over. So I have that one. It's like they do it in metal. It's kind of sexy.
You use it?
No, I don't use it. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I used it on holiday because I wanted to like see how it all works and everything. But I don't really use it. I can and I have, but I don't use it often. Then I have another one which is with off-ramp. You can set these up very easily. They're virtual cards. So it's on my phone as a Google card. You know how you can create a card and mm-hmm. with RFID? Like you can create a card, a virtual card. So I have that with off-ramp as well. And there's another one that I don't use anymore. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, so I have those two. But mainly just to see how it all works and see if it's smooth.
Yeah. That's what I think we're doing with like all of these
Yeah.
things.
Look, the crypto, if you hold, like, because with crypto.com, you can hold like a whole bunch of different coins. But if you're holding coins there that you're not going to use over a long, like you're going to like trade, or they're like a low cap or a mid cap coin where the price fluctuates, it's like, why do you want to spend this? So stable coins work.
That was going to be my exact point.
Yeah.
It's like makes sense for stable coins.
So if you're getting paid for work and accepting stable coins, right?
Yep.
Do you sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would get, not that anyone pays me to do anything, but if I mean, I'd like to get paid, and if I would accept stable coins, and then okay, the credit card makes a little bit more sense.
Yep. Yeah.
Just to use it in the real world. But MetaMask doing it it feels like a good move for crypto.
Just a note, so just to correct myself, so it's USDT, USDC, and wrapped Ethereum. So you can't even spend regular old ETH. It has to be wrapped ETH. Do you know why that is?
I'd say because of cheaper transaction fees.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there's something to do with like how spendable it is. I noticed that some applications prefer wrapped ETH, like OpenSea prefers wrapped ETH, right? Especially for like limit orders. Like
when you place a bid,
yeah,
you cannot bid in ETH.
Yeah.
You have to bid in wrapped ETH.
And I think it's got something to do with like transaction fees and executions time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Because it can happen faster. It doesn't have to happen on their base chain.
Yep.
I believe. Someone please correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone's actually watching.
Yeah, well, we're at the end of the episode, so probably not.
Yeah. Do you have anything else? We talked about Bitcoin. I don't know how long we talked about it for.
I mean, about an hour now, other than all the tangents I took us on. One other thing I had in my notes that was related to this when we kind of lightly planned our conversation today was, so Goldman Sachs just disclosed 418 million in Bitcoin ETF holdings in Q2.
Yeah. Okay.
And of that 418 million, 238 million was invested in BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin trust.
Yeah.
So just another, bullish sign. I mean, on the flip side of that, Morgan Stanley reduced their ETF holdings from 270 million to 189, mainly selling their Grayscale Bitcoin Trust shares. So they're being a little bit more cautious. So you kind of see both.
The Grayscale shares have a higher holding cost. So they charge more. So I think there's a lot of people selling out of those and buying other ones.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's movement between the ETFs.
Yeah.
Yeah. But 7% of Bitcoin is held in ETFs right now, which, I don't think like it's alarming yet, but it'd be interesting to know what happens if that number keeps getting higher and higher. And if there's some concentration, because how the security of it works, and like if there's a concentration of Bitcoin somewhere, does that matter or not? So it's interesting, but I think it's bullish.
Yep.
ETFs are working. It worked. Most successful ETF in history.
Really?
Yeah. Bitcoin.
Also the only ETF with a capped supply of the asset that. And that's interesting because usually it's like you can just keep, the commodity or the asset can grow.
Yeah.
But it's a cap.
Okay. I didn't think about that.
I'll fact check myself on that, and if I'm wrong, I'll put a stupid Pepe on my face in this moment right now. But if I'm right, ultimate Chad.
Nice.